Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Norris, the Educational Specialist in the Office of Extended Learning from the Alabama State Department of Education. I'm excited that you're viewing this video and that you are already starting to prep and plan for summer 2025 with our students. I've put together some resources and some slides in a Google folder for you, and I hope that this video tutorial will help you walk through that folder. The idea is that you can do some initial planning alone, or you can use these resources to gather your team together and meet together and have some time to dig deep into Summer Learning 2025. So I'm going to flip between a couple of different screens. I have a slide presentation that's contained within the Google folder. I'm going to go through parts of the slide with you, and I will pause and show you in the Google folder where resources are that go with certain slides. So if you are following along, you're welcome to hit pause on the video, find the slide or the resource in the Google folder and follow along with me. Or you can watch this video in its entirety, or you can even pause this video at certain times with your group and just use this video to guide your learning. This presentation is called Summer Learning Rocks, Preparing for Quality Summer Programming. The QR code leads you to the Google Drive. I'll also have a link to that Google Drive in the OSL running updates so that you can find these resources. So I want to talk very quickly just about the people that are involved in this work. We have some partnerships from around our state, including AMSTI, OMI, ARI, instructional services, various departments there, and federal programs. If you're interested in incorporating any of those things into your planning, if you will contact me and I can set up some different meetings with those people. All of those parts within your local district are also really important to bring to the table when you're discussing summer learning for 2025. The other thing I would like to mention is that we now have an Office of Extended Learning at the State Department of Education, and part of our mission and vision really is helping you prepare quality summer programming, among other things. So I'm here as a resource. My email address is on the first slide. It's jeff.norris@alsde.edu. So at any point, if you have questions or if you would like a thought partner or someone else to partner with you in this work, I would love to do that, and you are welcome to reach out at any time. At the beginning of these types of meetings, I always like to do something almost kind of like an icebreaker, but something that gets people talking, because you'll notice throughout the slides that are in this presentation, there's a lot of discussion. And depending on who you have at the table, they may or may not know each other. The idea is really to bring lots of different thought partners into this work as you're planning, because it encompasses so many different areas within your district and not just one. So the more people that are involved in this initial planning, the better. This particular protocol is called the Synectics protocol. So I'm going to flip between screens. This is the initial slide. So the way Synectics works is you have 4 different posters hung around the room or around the space that you're in, and each person is going to choose one of those posters that finishes this particular prompt. Our summer learning program is most like blank. Now, in the case of our files that are in here, the ones I prepared, they're called Synectics posters, and your options are a rock band, a marching band, a jazz band, or an orchestra. So those are the different options that you can choose to fill that sentence. And so people will get up, they will find a piece of chart paper next to those pictures, and really it's just a way for people to talk to each other. If they don't know each other, this is a great time to introduce themselves to each other. And really it's just one of those kind of share out jigsaw things where you can share out many varied and unusual ideas of how each of your summer learning programs are like those different bands. The other option here is, especially with bigger groups and people not knowing each other, you can give them a chance to piggyback off of each other. So if they, if they say their summer learning program is like a rock band because it has lots of different components and really cool things happening, then another group can say, oh, well, a marching band also has lots of different things going on. So we're similar to the rock band as well. But our summer learning program is also like a marching band because there's one leader who is in charge of all the programming. And then you could kind of keep stemming off of each other with this protocol. So this is a fun one just to get people up and moving, get them used to the fact that there's going to be lots of discussion throughout these slides. During this same time, you can also have them sign up for discussion partners. So within this slides presentations, there's 3 different articles that we're going to read, and each of those corresponds to a different discussion protocol and a different discussion partner. So within your Google folder, there is a file, and it's called the discussion partner sign up. And so there are 4 different options. And so as people are up walking around, they can go ahead and sign up on each other's spots. So if you are a microphone or a drumstick partner, you sign up on each other's drumsticks. And that way, when it's time to go to that discussion partner, you have already chosen a partner, and it speeds things up just a bit. So that file is also located within the Google folder on the main slide. So the outcomes of this particular presentation, and really the outcomes of this initial meeting for your summer learning planning team, really would be to reflect on last year's summer learning. And then we want to begin the process of shifting our mindsets, shifting our practices, and shifting our resources. The material that's in this slideshow in this Google folder will help you do those 3 things. Follow-up recordings from this office will dig into more details in each of those things. Today really provides an overview for just kind of big picture planning for summer learning, since it is just September. We also want, again, to bring as many people to the table. So I'd encourage you to use this chance to really network and share best practices. People in federal programs don't always know exactly what's happening in summer camps because that may fall more under instruction. Some districts have several people who have several job duties. Some people have our literacy specialists who are working with summer learning. Some are partnering with OMI and different organizations. So I encourage you to bring those people to the table and really utilize each other because the knowledge is in the room. The other piece to this presentation, there's a little bit about blending and braiding funds from our federal programs department. I'm happy to talk with your district more about this and give some examples, and we'll continue talking about that throughout the year. Because of this ESSER funding cliff, I know this is a hot topic for many school districts, and so a lot of that has to be done on an individual basis, but there are some general rules that we can talk through in this particular presentation. So why summer learning? This is something that we just want to make sure that we kind of reference as we are working on the work, right? So this link in the slideshow takes you to a YouTube video from the National Summer Learning Association. It's a short video. It really provides some great context to summer learning and the importance of summer learning. I think it would be a really valuable resource to share with your team. The next slide continues that with a little bit more research, and it has a fantastic chart that I think really lends itself to discussions around summer learning and the importance of summer learning. The big thing about this chart that you notice is that the achievement gap really widens between low income and middle income students. And so this same achievement gap increases with all special populations, honestly. The other thing to notice is that for a lot of students, you see that during the summer, we have that summer slide that we all know about, right? And so think about if we can, in our summer programming for all grade levels, this is not just for K-3 literacy camps, but for all grade levels, if we can provide opportunities for students to retain what they learned during the school year and just level off that summer, prevent the summer slide, think about where you start from the next school year and how we would exponentially increase, or at least just increase that the average reading level or any kind of learning level, right? So that line would increase, and that's exactly what we want. Part of our mindset shift that we're going to talk about a little bit is really making sure that we are thinking about the whole child and that we're thinking about all children, right? And so we want to make sure we are doing as much as we can for as many as we can in this process. And so I think this chart is a good one to show the importance of that. When we talk about structures for summer learning, there are a couple of different options I want to show to you. One of them is from the district Summer Learning Network, who partners with the Wallace Foundation and FHI 360. These are some nonprofit organizations on the federal level, and they are shifting the summer learning narrative. They have four pillars: academic quality, community partnerships, equity, and whole child development. And these are four pillars that really should be a part of your initial summer learning platform. They have a fantastic resource, a website that has lots of resources. I'm going to share the academic quality tool with you a little bit later in this presentation. And from that website, you can actually go further into their website and find some really good reflection tools for each of these four pillars. If you're looking for some initial planning and some structure to your program, this is a great place to start. The other place that you might want to think about are the Alabama After School Quality Standards. There are 8 standards. Each of these 8 standards has subcategories and some subcomponents. Again, I'll show you a tool later, a website that has some reflection tools for you in this. These after-school quality standards are for all out-of-school time programming in Alabama, but these 8 will give you a frame of reference for prioritizing certain things in your summer learning program. So during this time, I would love for you to hit pause and take a second to think about the 2024 summer learning and celebrate some of the things that you did this past summer. I also want to emphasize that you take this time and really discuss K-12 programming and K-12 initiatives and talk about different practices and resources and programming that you provided for your students this past summer. Every department looks a little different, and so depending on who you have at your table, this could look a little bit different. So maybe take a second to have each person or each group create some type of anchor chart celebrating this. I would love for you to actually anchor your celebrations in those 4 pillars or in those Alabama quality after-school quality standards. So in your Google Drive, there's actually a file in there that says "Let's Celebrate," and it has the 4 pillars and the after-school quality standards for you in that file. So if you would like to pull that out and have people kind of use it as a frame of reference as they do this, that would be actually a good idea. So as you create your anchor charts, maybe label them with certain pillars or after-school quality standards that they relate to. I would say about 5 to 10 minutes is plenty of time to brainstorm and share ideas. You can hang them around the room, and then we'll come back together. So I'm going to give you a little blank time real quick to pause this if you would like to and do this activity, and then we'll continue. So this sharing out opportunity, welcome back if you pause the video. Once you've shared out some of these celebrations and given voice to the stories and to the practices that you're really proud of, I would love for you to share those with us at the Office of Extended Learning. So we actually are creating a podcast that is going to share specific stories. If you want us to highlight one of your initiatives that you're really excited about, again, you can email me, jeff.norris@alsde.edu, and we'd love to put that on our Facebook page or our Twitter site. We'd love for you to follow us on those 2 things, and then continue to tag us in posts that you make about anything after school or out of school time or extended learning opportunities for students. We'll continue sharing that with legislators and with State Department officials and just around our state and nation, because we're really excited about the things that we've been doing. There is a video embedded on this slide. It says "Let's go." This is actually a compilation of pictures and videos and some different things from summer learning this past year in Alabama that we put together. It lasts about 1.5 minutes, so this might be fun to watch and maybe even create something like this for your own school district. So as we move throughout the rest of the time together, you may have noticed again that we're going to do a lot of talking, and we want within our district to be really transparent about our learning and about where we are as a district in regards to summer learning. We need to be trusting in each other. We also want to be present with our time and collaborate together. This is probably your initial meeting for summer learning. So we want these things to hold true throughout the year as you work on the work. I think it's really important to establish this at the beginning, and that way everybody has an equal voice at the table and an equal opinion, and that we value each other and what we can add. So take this opportunity if you need to pause and kind of talk through what this could look like in your district and make that agreement with each other. All right, so we have three different shifts we're going to talk about making today. The first one is called shifting mindsets. And so we want to take a little bit of time just to really talk through what mindsets need to be shifted, what is our current reality, and what do we want our goal to be for summer learning. Each of these shifts is attached with an article that discusses in detail that particular topic. And so this first article is called Solving Tough Problems Requires a Mindset Shift. You'll find all three articles in the Google folder. If you scroll to the top of the Google folder, there are two additional folders called Articles and Discussion Protocols. All three articles are located in the Articles folder, and they should be named. You can see the titles in each one. This first one is called Solving Tough Problems Requires a Mindset Shift. So during this time, there's a timer for about 6 minutes. That really is plenty of time for this particular article. I do recommend that you sit down and read this article together during this time and during this space. It really is great for school districts as a whole, and not just with summer learning, but specific to summer learning. It also really helps us talk through this either or mindset and either or thinking and getting away from that. It also talks about paradox mindsets and surfacing tensions and processing tensions, which is really, really important, is finding people at the table who can help you be better. And sometimes we shy away from that, or we're not willing to look at different viewpoints. And so when we talk about summer learning in general, there are a lot of paradoxes. There's a lot of either or thinking, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. But specific to summer learning, think about this article, and as you're annotating and thinking through it, just know that we're going to have a little bit of a discussion time at the end of this 6 minutes. So when you finish reading the article, our first protocol is called Think, Pair, Share, and you're going to work with your Rockstar Hand partner for this particular task. There's a 4-minute timer on the slide presentation for you, and I would encourage you to try to stick as close to that 4 minutes as you can. The way Think, Pair, Share works in this particular protocol is you'll get with partners. The first person will talk for the first minute. The other person will not respond or comment or interrupt. Just practice active listening. For the second minute of that 4 minutes, the other partner will talk. And then for the last 2 minutes, you'll have a chance to respond to each other. So if you need to take notes, if you need to make notes on your article so that you remember what each other talked about, but that last 2 minutes is for you to have a discussion back and forth with each other. Just know that if you need that additional time over 2 minutes, you can always add some additional time, but I would try to give a space for at least 1 minute, 1 minute, and 2 minutes. This protocol, Think, Pair, Share, is located in the Google folder. It's going to be in back in the main folder. It's called Discussion Protocols. Each of these has its own little structure to it, kind of a checklist. So if you go in and you find TPS for Think, Pair, Share, it tells you how to do the instructional moves in case you've never used that discussion protocol before. So if you need to take an opportunity now to work through this, think through that discussion protocol, find your partner, and set the timer and take a few minutes. This is a logical time for a break. When you come back from the break, it's going to be time to move on. And the goal here is that we have now framed our thinking on what mindset shifting looks like and what it is. And I really hope you enjoyed that article. It's one of my favorites. We want to give time now to really think about the current reality of what summer learning looks like in our state and in your district specifically. So now that we are kind of thinking about what our mindset is, what our thoughts are, what is our current reality for these specific topics. I've chosen 4 below. The protocol that we used was called concentric circles. And if you've never done this, you really get inside an inner and an outer circle. Everybody faces a partner and you have different topics. So for ours, we all started with the topic of summer school versus or summer school and summer learning. Those seem like opposites sometimes, especially when we think about punitive terminology and just the way words have meaning. So if I'd encourage you, if you want to try the concentric circles and you have enough people, you get in 2 circles, and then the first topic for the first 3 minutes would be this topic of summer school and summer learning. And really, we just want to talk about what is your current reality for those things. What is the duality? What is the tension between those 2 things in your district and in Alabama? At the end of that 3 minutes, the inner circle will shift 1 space to the right. The outer circle will stay the same. They'll stay in their spots. And so you'll have a new partner for this. And the next topic is remediation, credit recovery, and then enrichment and extension. Again, seem like those might be opposites, but we can talk through, what does that look like in your district? What kind of mindset shift do we need to have in those 2 terms? And then you would do the same thing, talk for 3 minutes. Within that 3 minutes, you could even say the first minute is for one person to talk, the second minute is for the second person to talk, and you have 1 minute to discuss together. Or you can just have an easygoing conversation about these topics. We gave 2 more topics, this idea of elementary and middle and high school and what summer learning could look like at all 3 levels. There's a lot of mindsets that say it can't look the same, or that it has to look different, or it has to be a certain thing for one grade level over another. This is a good chance to get those viewpoints out in the open and talk through the possible tensions in that discussion. And then the last one is current reality and vision. This one, it may not necessarily even be a separate discussion. It may be that you kind of pull back together as a whole group and really just talk about how all 3 of those bullet points go together. This gives you that extra 3 minutes just to kind of talk about anything goes with your particular school district. This protocol is also in the Google folder. So if you look in the Google folder in the protocols, there is a file called concentric circles, and you can find it there. And you can use this time to work on this protocol. So now that you've really kind of started this discussion, depending on who you have in the room, now's the time to really dig deep into your district. So think about, again, from a K-12 perspective, I want you to kind of think through what is the current reality with summer learning? What are your goals for summer learning currently? What are requirements that have to be met? What are steps for the future? What could happen next? What is our priority versus what is, big picture thinking? What does it depend on the school that we're talking about? Does it depend on the site that we're talking about? Does it depend on the grade level? So really, this is your team time. I would suggest anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes really to just kind of individually and in small groups and maybe as a whole, pull out some chart paper, use a dry erase board, and really dig deep. Use this time to be transparent with each other and really think about what is your goal? What is your big vision for summer learning? And I would encourage you to not be limited during this time. Don't feel the structures of legislation maybe or finances or anything like that during this particular discussion. There will be time and a place for that. But for this one, let's just talk about vision casting and goals and what could be summer learning in our district. If you have different groups who are meeting and you created some type of anchor chart or maybe assigned different grade levels or different things like that, and people could put a gallery walk on the wall, this would be a good time to do some kind of silent discussion or wicked hydra. where you get to gallery walk around the room and look at different goals that people have, different anchor charts of current realities. And this can lead you to some great discussion. I like the silent discussion protocol because you can just take post-it notes and leave comments on each other's, or if you're doing a Wicked Hydra, that'd be leaving questions for each other and only questions. You can do any kind of version of that, but this is a time to really kind of see what other people are thinking. If you have a smaller group, and this is something you just did on the last slide, you may can kind of skip past this slide. The second shift we're going to talk about is shifting practices. So this gets a little bit more practical. Where again, I would love to partner with you on and share best practices with you from different districts around the state and just from national cohorts that I'm a part of. You can reach out to me if you're looking for specific things for your school district or want to talk through it. But this is your time to really think about if once we've shifted our mindset. Now, how do we make our practices reflect that mindset, right? How do we make our behaviors reflect the beliefs that we have about summer learning? Just like with the last shift, we're going to have a reading for this one. It's called Reimagining or Reinventing Summer Learning. There's actually a podcast link if you'd rather listen. The podcast, I think, lasts about 15 minutes or 20 minutes. It's a great podcast. It's a really good interview. But the podcaster actually in the Google folder has in the articles folder has created an article version of this called Reinventing Summer Learning. And within this article, it's about 4 pages long. They go through about eight or nine different questions that they want to answer in regards to what is summer learning practices? What are summer learning programming actually look like? It talks a little bit about looking at things through an equity lens. It talks a little bit about social emotional learning and the importance of the whole child. It talks a little bit about instructional design and how to design a summer learning program. It also talks a little bit about innovation. It touches on messaging and communication, and a little bit about ESSER funding and what the future practices could look like. So I'd encourage you to take a few minutes. You might need more than 6 minutes for this particular article, or because it's a little bit longer, if you wanted to divide it up and jigsaw it among your group, you could assign each person a section, and then with our particular protocol we're about to do, it would lend itself to having like 4 different sections. If you could think of a way to divide it into 4 different sections. So if you're pausing, this would be a good chance to pause and read the article. Once you've read the article, this protocol is called the 4-Square Share. You may have seen the Frayer template before. So what will happen if you look in the Google folder, in the discussion protocols, the 4-Square Share is a protocol. Things to consider is here, and the actual Frayer template is in the main folder. And in the Frayer template, you'll notice there's a spot around the oval with 4 different people who can summarize or give a main idea for their section, or even better would be for them to talk for about a minute, and then each person just to write down one takeaway they had from that person talking for that minute. So after each person in the group is able to share, the oval in the center would be where you can summarize all of the learning together. So you can put all 4 comments together and come up with, a kind of summary statement or general thoughts about that. That's called 4-Square Share. It takes about 6 minutes if you give everybody about 1 minute. And then the last 2 minutes is to come up with your summary statements and share that with each other. I really like that this article, different people respond to different portions of this article. And so this is a good chance to really kind of think through big picture practices that you have in your summer learning programming. So some more information before we let you kind of detail this with your school district. There are several slides about braiding and blending funds. This one is actually the most important, even though it looks the simplest, and it's very big picture and a little vague, but I think it's really crucial that we think about this. We want to consider our needs for programming, think about our practices independent of budget. I realize this is a big priority, and it's easy for me to outside say, to not think about budgeting or funding, but the ultimate goal here is this particular meeting really is about big picture planning and thinking about prioritizing what we want to do. Once you've established what you want to do, then you can start searching for funding that goes with it. If you limit yourself to a particular budget or funding at the beginning of this process, you're going to limit the actual practices that you come up with and that you want your students to do. So figure out your needs, figure out your big picture things first, figure out the practices that you want to promote, and then find the budget and identify the funding sources that are available. When we talk about blending and braiding, I'll let you read this slide, but really for summer learning, the easiest and the one I would recommend the most is braiding funds. So we're going to use multiple sources, but we're also going to keep those award identities intact. So if you're using title funds, you're using them specifically for what they're supposed to be used for. If you're incorporating 21st century funds, you're making sure to use those in a way that's appropriate for 21st century funding. If you are using local funds to pay for salaries or transportation, or you're pulling in food costs, or you've got different community organizations that are giving you financial awards, or you've applied for a grant, the braiding really helps you identify each individual funding source and tie it to a specific need, rather than just putting them in one big pot and pulling all of your funds, all of your funding requests from that one pot. So, for example, this particular summer school program or summer learning program used ESSER funds. So this is obviously not this year, some title funds, and they kind of talked through the process of what kind of documentation you would need for this, making sure you identify which type of documentation for which type of funds. And you can see exactly how this particular district used those funds when they created this particular budget. Some of those, again, are no longer there. So some of this might have to be offset by local funding or grants. And so I can talk you through some of those particular options a little bit later. But this idea of blending and braiding is really crucial for creating good practices in your summer learning program. The last shift we're going to make is shifting resources. And then the reason I don't have a talk time for practices is because I'm going to give you an extended amount of time here at the end and give you a couple of things to look at. I think it's important to ground yourself in shifting practices and then shifting resources or shifting funding first before you get into that discussion. So this last article is called Doing More with Less, Preparing for the ESSER Funding Cliff. It's a shorter article than the other two. It's a quick read, and it gives you some information on how to prioritize your practices and your resources now that we are in this kind of funding cliff situation. And it talks a little bit about articulating priorities, de-siloing the decision-making process, which, again, hopefully you've got several people in the room today that are helping you work on the work. And so that in itself is already a step forward. The last thing is fighting the epidemic of programitis. So looking for creative ways to do programming and shifting practices that may be different than what you've done in the past, or that might be cheaper or might be free. And so you want to look into those things. So take this time to read that article. So this last protocol that we're going to do is called sentence, phrase, word. It's also in that Google folder. And with sentence, phrase, word, during that 4-minute time limit, the people that are with in groups, the partner that you're with, will each share a sentence, a phrase, and a word. So you'll have 1 minute to each share those 3 things and maybe expand on it just a little bit. And then again, that last couple of minutes will be you able to respond to each other and think about how this relates to the other 2 readings and all the talking that you've been doing so far and the initial plan that you've been doing so far. So after we have grounded our thinking in these shifts in these articles, I've got a couple of tools for you to look at, and this really will lead the remainder of your planning session. So I'm going to introduce you to a couple of these different tools. and then encourage you to use those in the remainder of the planning. So this first one is a Transforming Summer Key Evidence-Based Practices Likert Scale. And so this slide goes through 3, 5, 7 different categories of practices that you can think about and resources that you might need. In the Google folder, there's a file called Likert Talk. And when you pull up Likert Talk, you'll notice that some pretty similar. It's got the same 7 categories, and there's a Likert scale next to it. So with Likert Talk, you'll take a minute to talk with your team and reflect on each of those 7 practices and give yourself a rating from 1, which is getting started, to 5, which is full implementation. This is one tool you can use to kind of talk to help you structure your planning and your thinking. You might notice there's a particular category that you're weaker on than others, and that might be a priority for you this summer. It might be that 3 or 4 of those are priorities, and so you really want to use your time wisely. Or you may want to divide and conquer. You might want to assign different people of your summer learning team to help you with these different categories. All of them are really important, and it would be helpful to have different people who are kind of prioritizing different practices or resources. The other tool I'd like to show you is called the Alabama After School and Quality Standards. I mentioned this earlier. There is a link in the slideshow on the next slide, but I have put the 8 standards here again. And remember that these are just standards that are a driving force towards continual improvement. It's supposed to be brief and succinct and be kind of a minimum of things. There are 8 different components, and you can rate yourself on each of these particular standards, and they kind of have an alignment that you would use. The link for the academic quality tool and the after-school quality standards is on the next slide. There are 2 websites. I've mentioned both of these. The first is called the District Summer Learning Network Academic Quality Tool. So in this particular link, if you pull it up in your slideshow, there's about a 7 or 8 page document. And within that document, I can kind of show you what it looks like printed. So this is the document printed. You'll know you're in the right place if it looks like this. I would suggest printing this out for your group or possibly for each partner. And you can walk through this academic quality tool to kind of challenge your thinking or to give you a structure. Again, it can help you prioritize what you need to be working on. That same website from the District Summer Learning Network has several other tools that you can use for equity and for programming and different things. But this academic quality tool to me is a priority, and I think this would really help drive your discussion as you meet for the next few minutes. The other website is the After School Quality Standards site, and it is something pretty similar. It's a longer document, so I'm not sure I recommend printing this for everybody in your group, but if you have a smaller group, it might work. Or again, if you want to print one for the entire group and kind of walk through it together. But it walks through each of the quality standards and kind of gives you a checklist for each of those quality standards, and would again help you prioritize which of those practices and resources would help you meet your vision. It gives you a good starting point to have those discussions and really have a great discussion with your group. I would say, again, anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour is what I would recommend allowing for this discussion. And again, I just kind of want to highlight that this is our initial meeting for summer learning. We're not looking at requirements right now. We're not looking at specific necessarily teaching practices. We're really looking at more of a holistic picture. How about field trips for our students? Think about extension activities. Think about resources we already have in place. Think about partnerships we already have in place with different community organizations or future ideas for those things. So really, this is the time of the school year when we need to be thinking bigger picture, and we'll eventually be able to nail down those types of specifics as the school year progresses. But I appreciate you taking a chance today to really think through this with your team. I hope some of these protocols have been helpful to help you lead your discussion and have this discussion with your team. I want to leave you with just a couple of thoughts that the Office of Extended Learning can do to help you out. We will have a summer learning guidance document that will be coming out. You may remember this from last year. It is delivered via memo, but we'll also be attaching this to our extended learning website and on the Office of Student Learning rolling updates page. This will help you both with big picture planning and the minutia. I would expect this would come out at the very end of 2024 in December, or possibly at the very beginning of 2025. Our goal would be for you to have that in January at the very latest. If you're interested in this or helping us create this or kind of fine tune it, you're welcome to reach out to me. Or if you have not seen it around that time period, you can reach out to me and I will send it to you personally. Also, thinking about curriculum collaboration, professional development, this is a good chance for, I'm happy to sit down with you and help you plan some of those things, or I can provide it, or I can work with our other State Department offices. Specifically, if you're thinking about some math professional development for your math learning camps during the summer, if you would like to partner with ARI and talking about some of your literacy camps this summer, thinking about especially our upper fourth and fifth grades and then middle and high school programming. I would love to be a resource for you and a partner for you and connect you with different groups who might be interested in that. If that's one of your priorities and goals, please reach out. I would love to be part of that process. The last one I would mention is our technology and motion specialist from the state of Alabama. They are already thinking about ways that they could pull some specialty camps in this summer and provide professional development to teachers so that the teachers could lead those camps. That would be something you want to start earlier in the school year and not wait until the end of the spring. So if that's an interest of you, please reach out to me or to one of your technology and motion specialists, and I'm sure they would be happy to help out with that. Community partners and resources. I'm working on lists. Hopefully that would be of use to school districts, but I would encourage you to take this time if you haven't already. Hopefully you identified some of those community partners when you were talking about resources during the discussion time. But if you have not, really think outside the box here. If you've got a local church or a local community center or a nonprofit that would like to help out, this is the year to try those things. And again, if you need me as a thought partner to help you walk through that, I'd be happy to do that. But I would encourage you to use those resources to really help, especially in the enrichment and extended learning for our students in the summer. It doesn't even have to be a part of every camp. So just because you have a literacy camp doesn't mean you can't also have a STEM camp. And also, just because your students are going to a literacy camp doesn't mean they can't do a STEM rotation within that camp. In fact, that would be a great idea. So use those community partners and those outside resources to help you fill those needs. There are a couple of grants that will be available. Depending on when you watch this video, I would anticipate those going out in late September or early October. So if you'll watch the memos from the State Department of Education, one grant will be a formula grant. So every district will be receiving funding for K-3 literacy camps. This is from the Alabama Literacy Act. And so we have a formula based on numbers of K-3 deficiencies on the early years assessment. Everyone will receive funding or some funding for that. And so you should get that memo with the amount your district will receive. And again, late September, early October. The other grant is called the ASAP grant, the Alabama Summer and After School Program Grant. This grant is actually smaller grants. It's up to $50,000 for after school or summer programming. There is an application for this particular grant. It should open up October 1st and end at the end of October. And then those funds will actually be distributed to be used by January 2025. So if you have an after school idea or for summer programming, those funds can be used for a lot of different things. Look in the memo for all the details about that particular grant. I'm also really interested in visiting sites. So if you have after school programs going on, or if you're having a meeting with your summer learning team and you would like to invite me to come and attend, I would love to be a partner for you and be a part of that work. I can do that virtually or in person. We're also going to have some virtual office hours again this year for summer learning throughout the year. So if you'll just keep an eye on that Office of Student Learning running update site, we'll let you know as we're having virtual office hours. And I would really love for you to be a part of those meetings so that we can be face to face. The last thing I want to share before this video ends is about 21st Century. We have Amanda Rylant. We have a PERSA specialist at our State Department who is supervising the 21st Century program. It has, depending on how long you've been in education, you may have seen it change a little bit over the years. It has become more streamlined than ever, and our department, the State Department, wants to continue to streamline it even more to make this process, the application and documentation process, even easier for school districts. The awards are pretty heavy from the state from the 21st Century program that you get. You can see they range from $50,000 to $300,000. It's a 5-year competitive grant, so once you receive the grant, you're in for 5 years, and you can use it for lots of different things. There will actually it actually does support the Literacy and Numeracy Act, so you can incorporate that summer camp or after school programming in your application so that you can meet those requirements as well. And you can also braid it with other funding sources. So if you are using 21st Century to pay for certain things, then you can combine that with other grants and with other funding sources to make these different opportunities happen for your students. There will be a request for application coming out soon. And then from what I understand, it will be spring 2025. They will release an application for cohort 26. And that will be that next 5-year cohort. There also is the potential for a specific summer learning application for 21st Century, and we're still working on that. But again, I would keep an eye out on the State Department memos or the Office of Student Learning site, rolling update site, or eventually the Office of Extended Learning website will have some of these dates and notifications for you so that you can remain aware of what all is happening. The last thing is just this QR code for the Google folder. I will also have this website address in the student learning rolling updates so you can find it. But all of these resources, including this video presentation and the slideshow presentation, the slide deck, all of the articles and all of the handouts are available for you in that Google folder. If you have any questions about that, you're welcome to email me, jeff.norris@alsde.edu, and I'll be happy to share that with you. Thank you so much for being a part of this presentation, and reach out if you have any other questions.